Hi guys, this is a quick video to kind of help you out with graphing parabolas, and this is something that people kind of have a hard time with. There's a lot of ways to do these problems, but I want to walk you through one of the typical strategies. Parabolas are these graphs that always have one of these, an x squared, and when you see that x squared on the screen, you know it's not going to be a line. You know you can't do slope and y-intercept. Those are shortcuts for graphing lines. It's not going to work on this. If you want some shortcuts, there's three things that make up a parabola that help you do the graph, and those three things are this. One of them is called the roots, and there's another name for roots. The other name is, we call it an x-intercept. So x-intercept. And you want to figure out what are the roots for this equation. So I'm going to write that down. You also want to find something called the y-intercept. So the y-intercept is something we need to track down. And then the third piece of information that we're kind of looking for three clues is called the vertex. So we want to figure out the vertex. And basically, to get this graph put together, it's going to take a lot more work than doing like a typical line. We're going to have to figure out what are the roots, what's the y-intercept, what's the vertex, and piece it all together on this graph. So like I said, it kind of takes a lot of work. So I have my skeleton, my framework here. Not going to be able to fill any of this in until I go through the pieces. So usually what I do is I kind of go down below and I write out that I'm going to find these three things. So I'm going to go down below here and I'm going to write, I want to find my x-intercepts, I want to find my y-intercept, and I want to find my vertex. And this is kind of where I'm going to use this space to show all of my work. So let's go through and kind of talk about, like, how do you do this? How do you find the x-intercepts? How do you find the y-intercepts? How do you find the vertex? X-intercepts take the most time, so I'm going to start with that first. You take the rule y equals x squared plus 2x minus 8, and if you want to find the x-intercept, you're going to set y equal to 0. You're going to set this whole entire thing equal to 0 and try and solve it. This is not an easy equation to solve equal to 0. You could add the 8 over, but with the x squared, you get really stuck on what you're going to do to solve it. So our strategy is we learn how to factor these equations into two parentheses. If you can factor this problem, it's going to be a whole lot simpler. So we've been working in class on factoring. By now, you're supposed to be kind of good at factoring, know how to do it. There's a method we use. It's called the rectangle diamond method. Rectangle diamond. Some teachers call it the box and X method or rectangle X method. Whatever you want to call it, it's the method where you're factoring using these. And I'm going to go through this quickly because you're supposed to kind of know how to do this. If not, maybe you should go back and watch a factoring video to kind of get it down. The x squared goes in the corner. The negative 8 goes across from it. You multiply it together to get negative 8x squared. The 2x from the center goes in the bottom. And then you're going to find two numbers multiplying to the negative 8, adding to the 2. So like 4 times 2 is 8. And if I did a negative 2, I could do 4 times negative 2 to get a negative 8. And 4 minus 2 is 2. So this is perfect. I'm going to put a 4x and a minus 2x in here. And then you go around the outside edges of your rectangle and you times the corners to get the inside. So to get x squared, you're going to do an x times an x. So x times x is x squared. To get a 4x, you're going to do an x times 4. To get a negative 8, you're going to do 4 times negative 2. And it's these sides, these things, that make up our factors. X plus 4 and x minus 2 go right inside my parentheses. So the rectangle diamond method, that's our way of getting the two parentheses, and we call these parentheses factors. And now to actually do the last step, we got to split up the factors and set them both equal to 0. So it takes a little bit more work here, and I'm going to have to go to the bottom. I didn't leave myself a lot of space. I'm going to take x plus 4, set it equal to 0, and solve. I'm going to take x minus 2, set it equal to 0, and solve. And the actual solving is really kind of simple, actually. We're going to flip the 4 over, get a negative 4. So x equals negative 4. we're going to flip the minus 2 over so it becomes a positive 2, so x equals 2. And I'm going to show my work just like that. So I got negative 4 and 2 make up my x-intercepts. So there is the first piece of all my work. So let's take those answers and go up to the graph where we had this all kind of set up. And what we just figured out is our roots are x equals negative 4, I'm going to copy this down, and x equals 2. Which essentially, on the graph, that means 2 and negative 4 are the first points I can put on here. At 2, I'm going to go here and put a root at x equals 2. And at negative 4, that's 1, 2, 3, 4. Negative 4 is like over here. That's my other root. So if you need to pause the video so you can kind of catch up and get your graph set up, go ahead and do that because we're starting to get some of our pieces to put together. So feel free to pause whenever you need to. We have a root at 2 and a root at negative 4. So now we go after the other facts, the y-intercept and the vertex. These other ones are going to be easier in comparison. So let's go back down here. For the y-intercept, we're going to take the rule, y equals x squared plus 2x minus 8. And remember what we did for the x-intercepts. We bubbled 0. We substituted in 0 for y. Well, I'm going to do the opposite over here. I'm going to substitute 0 in for x. So I'm going to have y equals 0 squared plus 2 times 0 minus 8. And really, this is why this one's so much easier. You don't have to factor or do anything weird. The zeros cancel, and you get y equals a minus 8. So that's it. That's my y-intercept, negative 8. So that's kind of an easier one for me to kind of figure out. So I'm going to go back up to the top, and now I'm going to fill in the next fact that I just figured out. It's y equals negative 8. And that means on our graph, on our y-axis here, here's my y-axis, negative 8. So let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Negative 8's right here. That's my other point that I now know, my y-intercept. So I got 2 roots and a y-intercept. I can almost see the parabola. I can kind of see that U shape starting. I just need to figure out my vertex. So that's the last component. To do the vertex, you go to your equation and don't forget that it's always an A, B, C in this problem. A in this problem is equal to 1. B is equal to 2. And C is equal to negative 8. It's like there's a 1 in front of this x squared that nobody bothered to write. So A equals 1. B equals 2, C equals negative 8. And the reason I'm highlighting those and writing that now is because the last step, the vertex, the way you figure out the vertex is you use this formula, x equals negative b over 2a. And what I'm going to do is write x equals negative blank over 2 times blank. And I'm going to fill in those blanks with the b and the a from up above. The b was equal to 2 and the a was equal to 1. Figure this out. And it's not too hard to figure out that this is a negative 2 over 2 times 1, just 2. And 2 divided by 2, negative 2 divided by 2, is a negative 1. So I now know I have a vertex at negative 1, which is only like a small piece of the clue. When I think I got my answer, I don't totally have it all figured out. This is what that means. When you get this negative 1 down here, it means on the graph, at negative 1 here, we have our center fold line. This is called our line of symmetry. So I draw a dotted line. It means at that dotted line I could fold the graph over and it would land on top of itself. It's the middle of the parabola basically. So for the vertex, I know my fold line is at negative 1. But negative 1 comma what? Like where am I going to put a point? Is it going to be way down here, way up here? I need to find another number. So go back down here, and we're going to finish off this problem by making a little XY table. And the only number I'm going to put in my table is this negative 1. I need to substitute negative 1 into my rule and get an answer. So y equals x squared plus 2x minus 8. I'm going to substitute in my negative 1 where the x's are. So I'm going to make it negative 1 squared plus 2 times negative 1 minus 8. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to solve this thing. So I'm going to do negative 1 squared means negative 1 times negative 1, which is a positive 1. 2 times negative 1, which is what this is a minus 2. And then I have a minus 8. So y equals 1 minus 2 minus 8. 1 minus 2 is a negative 1. And a negative 1 minus 8 is a negative 9. So I end up getting, after all this work, a negative 9 at the bottom here, which means there's a negative 9 here in my table. A lot of people jump in a calculator and just sometimes plug in these values, and you can do that too. I'm just kind of walking you through the steps. But once I figure this out, 1, negative 9, that's the rest of my vertex up above up here. So going back to my graph, 1, negative 9 is now my vertex point, which means at negative 1, I go down to negative 9, which is going to be right here. There's negative 9. And that will be the final vertex point. So vertex is right there, which means I can piece together my parabola now. I now know, I'm going to use a different color here, that my parabola goes from root to root down to my vertex, so something like this if I started connecting points. Yeah, something like that. And I know that it didn't stop right here. My parabola is going to keep on going. It's going to grow and continue out. So I'll draw some arrows and kind of extend this a little bit so I don't look like I thought it stopped or something. And I know it's going to keep going out and getting wider and wider and wider. Never comes back together, just kind of keeps on going. But that's a pretty good looking graph right there. So to kind of recap a little bit here, just make sure when you go to do these graphs that you find your 3 most important facts. You find your x-intercepts, your y-intercepts, and your vertex. And it takes a lot of work. I mean, you have to show all of this stuff down below. You have to show all this work to get a full level 4. So practice and good luck. And if you need more, watch some more videos. Hopefully this helped. See you guys next time.